everybody. Thank you all for coming. It's really nice to be able to welcome you to the first ever collaborative event between ISoc and the Downey College Lake Society. We've got 5 poets with us this evening, each of whom is going to give a 15 to 20 minute performance. First 3 performances will be followed by a break for refreshments, which will be about 10 or 20 minutes, and then the final 2. So I'll hand you over to Niels to introduce each poet separately.
Okay, brilliant. Sorry guys. Peace and blessings upon all of you. As Sarah laid out the event very nicely, and we're going to start with a short Quran recitation. So, like Hamza.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان.
Just further translation of the verses that he recited. The Lord of mercy, he taught the Quran, created man, and taught him fine speech. The sun and the moon run their fixed courses. The stars and the trees bow down before him. He raised high the heaven and set straight the balance, so you too might not exceed in the balance. So weigh then with justice, and preserve that balance. He set down the earth for all its creatures, with its fruits, its palm trees laden with date stalks, its grain in the husk, its fragrant vegetation. Of the blessings of your Lord, then, which will you reject? Okay, just before we do start, I just have to make a safety announcement that the fire exit is pretty much the way you came in. So that's just downstairs and out the doors. Okay, so to get on with the first poet of the evening, we have Abbas Zahedi. He's originally from Iran, raised in West London, and he describes his work as a synthesis, a synthesis of his identity and heritage, ranging from traditional patterns to contemporary photographs and lyricism. And his link is, Twitter link is found on the sheets in front of you, which I really recommend looking at. He's an affiliate of Rumi's Cave, which is a poetry group in London, and part of a group called On the D. So give it up for Abbas.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name is Abbas. I'm going to perform a few pieces today, inshallah. I'm going to do 2 shorter pieces as a warm-up, and then I'll get into the main section. So there's a song some of you are probably familiar with called Wayfaring Stranger. And I wrote a few verses inspired from this song. It's an American folk song, which has been covered by many artists. Wayfarer, floating philosopher, move swiftly, sidestep like a ninja, approaching perimeters that move inwards, away from the crowds to emerge as a stranger, roaming in the midst of a solstice. On the night of power, your soul is closest to that which gives life, knows when to take it, knowledge of a force that is known to be sacred. Aiming, in a sense to be aimless, searching since you sought to seek purpose, circus. You're a freak, your concern is to ally with the meek to defeat the usurpers. Stranger, content with that title, befits a time that you're seen as a rival. Return to your Lord to return as a reckoner. Bid farewell for a time wayfarer. This next piece is called Realization Past Separation. Realization past separation. in a creation moulded by mystical hands, devoid of thought and devoid of plans? Or does the ocean think before the wave lands, before the froth of life arises and mesmerizes to in an instant apart? A song of nature sung to divine art, fluid, abducted by heat, moves to meet trapped oceans, equipped to deplete, blown wide across lands, as I migrate from the sea to the stone, waiting to feel the fingertips of your hands upon the brim of my brow. Faith prevents me from asking when and how. Instead, I remain to stay calm, for after goodbye, I believe in salam. So his next piece is a very happy piece. It's called Blood. I think culture is very important as a transformative process. When you're creating something, usually it's because you're trying to go somewhere. So some of my work comes from when I'm trying to go from a dark place to a brighter place. And this is one of those pieces. I asked him how to keep my voice strong. He said, take a bow. I asked him how to keep my heart strong. He said, take a bow. I asked him how to keep my blood strong. He said, take a bow. I know it sounds absurd, but I try to rhyme words with the word and the whole of existence. Inspired by a meditation once that persisted, I felt a minor elevation that imbued a sense of purpose. See, I was living on the edge till I began to scratch the surface. And now there's mud in my pockets because I pray upon the earth. I keep it next to my wallet to remind me what I'm worth. And when I put my head upon it, yet I'm lying in the dirt. I'd be lying if I said better things in this what? Embedding my head in it, taking hits like a head in it, see the lesson I'm getting it, stop my ego from dead in it. It's a miracle medicine that connects to the heart. I'm meant for a spiritual regimen, take it back to the start again, to the first existence. Before we had limbs, our souls were uplifted, see the heart then filled, elevated. Had it fashioned by the maker, instilled with rhythm. So when I want to be with him, I just open my tongue with a word I was given to heed of the sun, and I see the position upon horizons that breathe recognition. My eyes fatigue, falling into submission. Knees feel weak, give way prostration. Never felt this, not alone in creation. A magnanimous enter the frustration, defined by form and meat. Preservation, through symbols, decimals and equations. Now I taste the freedom, feeds on my timeline, I don't need them. My mind to ease, trying to read degrees of the style of a sundial. It could get deep, cause the first timeline's the one where you'll see. Define the skyline and bloom with the trees. Axe a grown man right down to his knees. And put the devil in a chokehold. Whilst I make him choke on a pebble, reduce his bass, switch off the treble, synthesize mids with an instrument, or sent on a wavelength with no signal. I be the combat kid, did about to go mental. I did I have a fundamental idea. And now it's quite clear that they transmit warfare that interferes with the core vibrations of my inner ear that shake till I'm shook with lies and fear. See the hook, that's an uppercut of ideas, sung so sweetly like a jab that comes near, turns into a peck, to then disappear. Come back to it as truth, so soundproof, how they lie in the depths of the foam in the booth. My soul resonates with the sounds of the blues as I sit and meditate to howling wolves. Oscillate the debate. Come brother, let's move. Oscillate the debate. I beg you brother, let's move to the middle of the earth where they used to be pagan till a mother gave birth to a man that saved them, freed them through high enslavement. From the slave them, he made muezzins, inspired by tectonic pre-techno idea that made the idols implode. Switch your IC free to what I don't know, amateur speaking, primordial prose. Dial 999, there's been a crash call. Inna lillah wa qala rasul, inna lillah. Please take your phone to the chest of the fallen individual. Salam. أنا اسمي بلال هيو على الصلاة وخير أمل. I see the cell start to restart the heart from a flat line to a beat that's banging upon my eardrum with a daf, a tongue, pure blackness, acoustic visions, trending the ummah into position, revive dead hearts, impact a percussion, hashtag CPR with idol smashing. Sit back, see the web start crashing. These iPhone Zimmer frames just can't imagine. Instagram cams with vintage visions of old school chaos in modern precision seem to be just juxtapositions of abstract blurs in high definition, the definition of a new impressionism imbued with a sense of sacred tradition. Fill in the blanks with a mind gone missing, Expanded from postmodernism's frozen attempts at occasional living that deal with light only after the prison. My life is a test, but this is a prison. Malady malaise maladaptation, and I'm proposing a dose of occasionalism. A gazelle for Ghazali's children. No head out of the ashik garnish, to yet who's bad guy they Janish. Bad guy they Janish, wondering what would be his vision when they snipe in my eyes just to get to my brain. In the fight for the rights to my jugular veins. Come near so you can hear me complain to the blood being juggled now by my veins. Blood, keep my heart straight. And immune from greed. Try shun what I want so I chase what I need. Speech struggle so fluent, it's a PhD since the first day that I wept to breathe. Nostalgia kicked in for the womb of my mother, made apparent via lungs that blew and shuddered, and when I learned tongue rat simply uttered the stress of the blessed. A life examined, call it a test and a test to play. Oh, yeah, I read it in the middle, beginning from an end to an end with no beginner. To when there were no beginning, less thoughts of when, hopes are not sinning, forget to forget and live not to regret. The pain you endure for the pain, the reality, paint a picture. Words, analogies, derived from a light that's sent from above, to ignite with a soul that's filled with love, and burst forth like a minefield of doves, inscribed with a calligraphic exegesis for which no vocab will ever exist, except in the mind of he who exists fully. I rhyme with metaphors that fail when the similes try to see me fully. And yet I think I can unveil this situation. Float so high that I need persuasion. Worshipping idols or worshipping nations. We worship each other, but they worship Hastings, our leaders. They're worshipping death. We follow them. We're worshipping tech. Celebrities, some of them are worshipping aliens. We still follow their trends. Don't begin with failures. Because failure, that's a state that my heart's in. Not cardiac blood bypassing ain't gonna fix this. Can't see through the thickness, vessels diseased, drowning in sickness. Tell me blood, how come it come like this? Pressure don't rise with the strength of the ego, wrapped around thighs and around desert eagles. Hence why the Nabi said the nafs could be lethal. Success. Now that's a work in progress. I can't start nothing in life unless I know this. Focus, get my mind to a point that's joint with the one I give hope to the hopeless. I can see a point, a life worth pausing. Take time out when I'm taking it all in. Pray, you get the remedy pouring. Pray, everything else is just stalling. Pray, cause my only other way was a train track or hemorrhage by the morning's blood. Called Success, a critique on merit and matter. And this one is, again, a sort of transformative process, talking about culture, the importance of culture, and a critique of some of modern society. Sometimes I have these dreams in which I can't resist temptations at the precipice of where I currently stand and exist. On one occasion, I came across a synthesis of ancestral baggage where Bilbo Baggins appeared as a savage. Amidst the feeble tones of a Smeagol in tone, my precious, you all saw him rob it, would have got locked up if he weren't such a hobbit. And then, no lie, I saw this guy descend from the sky. He looked just like Gandalf, with a bag of ice in his hands, which he smashed before my eyes, extended his arm and said, hi. I said, hi, Gandalf. He said, my name's not Gandalf. I'm a song. I don't fly straight, and I'm into drama. I thought, what kind of karma chimera is this? But anyways, that's for another day. Real talk now. Not that that was banter. But I want to share this letter I once wrote to Santa. I said, Santa, where's the merit in the matter where you fat cats you just keep getting fatter? And P.S. I want a new iPad for Christmas. I have one of them fancy cameras so that I can record, rewatch and rework my impersonations of Franz Fanon. Needless to say, my words were dismissed. So I took my old iPad, backed up my brain, and then produced this. Success. Now that's a work in progress. I said it on blood, so bloods, you should know this. Focused my mind to a point that's producing soul for the soul of a soldier. I ran barefoot to the south of the border. Leapt over the cliffs at Dover. Mainland now see me ranging my rover to head east where the air felt colder. Their eyes were blue until their hair turned crimson. Tiger torch bearers burnt them like Bensons. Were they not European? Istanbul, they didn't see them. So they took their sippers out and went in with a ransom. AKA AK-47. Rise up, but I be the bread till 11. Wait for the one because we lost the 11. Living in a time elevator, beginning, don't matter which paradigm you're living in. Masons in sin civilization, hunting down Samuel, hunting then clash. What they want from us, deliver that just won't we just hold back, brother. I know it's just, but they're at war with all of us. And it's not just about F-16s. Chips that lie on the mobile screens. They'll be coming here after this indie scene to it's about money, men go green. It's about money, men go green. Concerts for the ruptured lungs and spleens. Or have you wiping the floor with your self-esteem? Insomniac, living the dream. Where have you gone? What have you seen? Lagoons of luxury, social streams of angels fly by me so highly, waiting to admire and like me. They say that they feel me in the bars, and how their stares turn to glare upon screens. Looming luminous suns upon laps and palms. These rappers became poets when they deciphered our psalms. And then the cipher, as we know it, ceased to exist, paved the way for that which united all under primordial perennial heritage, such as my thesis of emphasis, a synthesis of ancestral baggage, where Bilbo Baggins appeared as a savage. So fear not for the death of mod cons. For them I have prepared a libation brewed upon a maternal tongue. دعوت عاشق من از پشت صفحه هو عاشق شدم ای اهل حرم در زیر علم منو میبینی چه جو سر به دلم چیزی بگو دیگه میگه با هم بریم take a dagger to the heart of your smartphone screen rip it apart unveiled unseen microchips, macro lies that attack my attention, left paralyzed, I reside on the side of constant collide of a mind of a million fatalities and I have no idea what this means. Literally, I just stare at a screen. I'm illiterate, so all I do is read. Statistics break down news feeds. Yet my literacy will not allow me to see beyond the worldview that occupies me. And so I went. With the Occupy movement, it meant that my movement occupied resemblance to resentments of state residents from the 1% that's so affluent when it comes to culture. I come to sense, pick up my compass, set precedents that are geometric with a spiritual lens to cut through the sheer prevalence of a populace entrenched in pretense. And drug osmosis, highs to the lows, increasing the doses, medicate me, predict a prognosis, some overcome with sacred gnosis, encapsulated explosives, mass-produced by the masses, pretend that they're heaven sent, realign my mind with a military zen and a fist so tense that I fractured the pen before the sentence was R-E-M. R-E-M, before I perform for my hippocampus, verbose uppercuts that expose my bluff, for man, can I go tough if it ain't for me, kill my ego so I could be free to kun fa yakun upon the enemy, but it's peace. The word that I come with, the word that I sleep with, the word that I greet with, elevate, make the beat with. So don't fear from me. I ain't no cowboy. I don't wear Stetsons. And I don't wage war just to live like the Jetsons. Them there, we know them there, don't mind them, the big man in the Congo. Can't you see how we're on a roll? Count to 3, unlock your phone, swipe to delete the whole ball.
So, continuing on, our next poet of the evening is, I would say, from a very different background. Born in 1955 in Manchester, brought up in a very spiritual community and says to have learned meditation at the age of 16 and has studied religion and religious traditions throughout his life. Studied drama and creative writing at university before coming to Ely to become a teacher. And in his mid-40s he describes a crisis of meaning, and On the advice of Sufi teachers, he went to visit the tomb of Rumi in Konya and to meet the Mevlevi dervishes. And recently he's actually was invited to Iran to recite poems at the tombs of Hafiz and Sadi in Shiraz, and he writes poetry every day as a form of spiritual practice. Over to you, Tony.
Thank you. I thought Abbas said it clearly about moving from a dark place to a light place. You know, it sounds a bit abstract about spiritual practice, but simply it's that. Yeah. I wrote this short poem. I was asked to read my poetry in a park on Jubilee Day, and I was worried that it would be a nationalistic event, but it was okay in the end. But I wrote this. I am a poor man. I am a poor man who has no nation, no flag to fly but for the sky's blue cloth. My only kin, the human family. My only homeland, the earth's single sphere. So that's my declaration. Sign, or ayat. In beauty shine the sun and moon and stars. By love's desire they light our nights and days, and guide our course across the unknown sea. Yet the greatest light, more beautiful by far, spills from your eyes and pours through this heart. We are the unique lamps of divine fire, and through us the created world is seen, light upon light, beauty by beauty known. There's a poem, the structure of it is a villanelle, which is a French medieval form. Dylan Thomas wrote, "Do not go gently into that good night." It's the same form. And this poem I wrote for some friends in Iran who were having a bit of a hard time because of having friends that were English a few years ago. And I read this poem when I went to Iran. I read it at Sadi's tomb. It's called "With Faith in Humankind, Onward We Go." With faith in humankind, onward we go, beneath no flag, singing our own soul's song. Like many rivers, to one sea we flow. The sea, a unity we need to know, the source of beauty for which our hearts long. With faith in humankind, onward we go. Our true human colours begin to show, to no creed or nation do we belong. Like many rivers, to one sea we flow. Fearful ignorance is the only foe, the enmity that calls our friendship wrong. With faith in humankind, onward we go. Universal love the law we follow, though the barriers in our way seem strong. Like many rivers, to one sea we flow. As golden arrows from one golden bow, the name of love invoked in every tongue. With faith in humankind, onward we go. Like many rivers, to one sea we flow. And this poem, called "The Nightingale of Shiraz," I wrote when I returned from Iran. And my experiences were of great light and great darkness. And this poem was really an attempt to put everything together or integrate it. The Nightingale of Shiraz. Above the sound of thousands of people milling around the old marketplace, more eloquent than any human tongue, the song of the nightingale of Shiraz. So beautiful it stops me in my tracks, then looking for the source I see the cage. And so it is that my heart is pierced twice, sweet joy and deep grief in a single glass. The nightingale's song rings out clear and strong, as though it gives voice to 1,000 men, whose limbs are in chains, but whose hearts find wings for the blue above the stone of Shiraz. These poems are called the Nightingale or the Bulbul trilogy. And they were popular in Iran, these poems, just because they had a bulbul, I think, in there. But they were inspired by listening to a nightingale in Ely. And I'd never heard one before. This was about 3 years ago, because I was brought up in the north of England and it's too cold for nightingales up there. And it really, did something to me listening to this nightingale. Trilogy then, so the first one is called Everything Sings. Everything in its own unique way sings. The birds and trees, even the silent stones, always with some kind of love at the spring, the desire of life for life, love for love. There is a madness at the heart of things, 1,000-mile journey for one embrace, 1,000,000 years for one day with you, a whole life to lay upon your threshold. The song is perfected so it may die, the seeds needing fire that they might bear fruit. Dreams are gone like mist in the morning, that this world be entered as paradise. The second one of the trilogy is called Of What Will You Sing? When the sun doesn't break through and the sky hangs like a veil between you and heaven, of what will you sing if you sing this day, now even the birds have fallen silent? Will you sing of waiting for summer rain, of how the earth is drowning in its thirst? Or will you find voice for your own longing and confess the desert of your own heart? The lover likes to arrive on horseback, wearing silks with saddlebags full of gifts. But now he sits in the dust of the road, covered in the shame of the beggar's robe. 3. The mirror. Whatever clothes I am given to wear, I receive from your hand in gratitude. The lover's silk or the beggar's robe, my naked trust is all I can offer. Even this eye that I give away is you, and you alone, beautiful one. Light of intelligence and compassion, illuminating each listening heart. In the garden where God and Adam talk, only one figure walks, a single presence. Each is the secret of the other and revelation's mirror. I wrote this recently, a few weeks ago. I was thinking that people had died and people were ill and people were getting old as they do. And it was kind of on my mind about life being a process of loss or decay. And talking about, turning, the darkness into light, I felt, this was my attempt to do something with this, all the decay that's involved in time. For this, the tides. Like every beachcomber, I love the edge, the the place where mystery and daylight meet. From the depths of a dark sea, bright waves break and yield a litter of oracle signs. Amidst the spoils find abalone shells, throne rooms resplendent once with walls of pearl, now ruined halls where broken mirrors shine. And driftwood, scoured by the sand and tide, reflects the texture of my weathered heart, in each the beauty of the grain exposed. My fortune is told in the seaweed rags, and stripped to the bone, I know who I am. And here's one, how long have we got? What have we got? Last one? All right. This one's called two? Okay. This one's called Imbolc, which is the name of a pagan festival in spring that I was invited to my friends meet out in the fens and join hands in a big circle. But I never went anyway. I go sometimes when it's a full moon. But I never went this day, and instead I just sat and wrote a poem, because I thought that in the spirit we all meet, we all join. And then, yeah, maybe it worked. So this is called Imbolc. In silence hear the ringing of the bell, the earth singing its flight around the sun. The world's heart, as my heart, is crowned and winged. Upon thin air we walk a golden road. As dervish dancers turn, electrons spin, and wheeling galaxies raise weightless arms. Light is falling into my open hands, and breathing out an unseen river flows. I lost my heart to love so many times, gave up all hope of ever growing wise, waiting for love when love alone waits here. In every sigh, love's longing for itself. This I'll read as the last one. My mum had died. It was a few weeks after my mum had died. And I was cycling back from Cambridge to Waterbeach along a path by the river. It's very dark, the river, and very scary. But it was a very beautiful night. And here's the poem that came out of that, called Bowl. The night is a bowl full of beauty. Drink deep. The stars and planets and moon are silver in the black mirror of the still river. Our hearts are lamps that blaze in the night, the truth of being limitless, wider than any landscape of time, the love in our hands without end.
Next up we have Ali, and with a very ominous introduction, he describes himself as a student and wanderer. His journey began in Damascus some years ago, and at the moment he is passing through Cambridge. So give up for Ali.
Thank you so much to Tony and Abbas. Abbas, I feel like taking a dagger to my iPad. My poems aren't in there.
I have one too.
So, I wouldn't say I'm a poet, but I like reading a lot of poetry, and most of my poems are inspired by someone else's. Most of my writing is inspired by someone else's. poetry. So the first one, written only a few days ago, it's called The Secrets of Prayer. And for those of you who might not be able to sort of glean what it's about, tries to put into verse the movements of prayer, of how Muslims pray. Hands cupped, the stream shimmers in anticipation. I begin in his name. A curtain of water falls, caressing my hair, dropped like quivering hearts, pause near my eyes, then gently flow away. Eyes shut, each heartbeat a call to prayer, bears witness silently. The gaze turns, faces itself, hidden from our disloyal eyes. I offer this token to you, to be closer, to be nearer. Hands raised, facing the sanctuary built by Father and Son for you, the holy for you, the great. I bear witness to you, by you, for you. I bear witness by your friend, our Master. Head bowed, facing the earth from which we come, into which we shall return. All praise for my Maker. My gaze rises, tracing an arc from the horizon to the stars. Hear my silent call. Hands joined, stretch forward, begging for your blessings. O Lord, treat my parents like they did me when I was young. Reward goodness with goodness and trespasses with forgiveness. Knees sink, the ground trembles as it welcomes my embrace. I fade into nothingness. As I close my eyes, earth touches earth. Praise to my Maker, the Most High. A fleeting rise, a second descent, and then a silent hum. Breathing pause, the heart parts to reveal a universe within. Peace be upon you and his compassion and mercy. You who are adored by angels, a blessing for all the worlds. So that's the first one. I was told not to read anything too political. So I won't, but there's a short poem I wrote some while ago to call for unity amongst Muslims. We don't like to talk about it in front of outsiders, and we don't like to talk about the fact that often, there are a lot of interfaith conferences, but often, we need a lot of intrafaith, So anyway, this is written in the context of what was happening in the Greater Middle East. It's called Your Silence. Some of you have heard it before, so apologies for that. Your silence, adorned by deceit, laced with conceit, is bathed in the blood of innocence. Why don't you speak? Your silence has no dignity. All this talk of unity is colored by the hypocrisy of thoughts and deeds. Why don't you speak? Your silence, broken for a brother in faith but no other, where is your humanity? Why don't you speak? Your silence condones the slaughter of innocent sisters, mothers and daughters. I'll say it louder. Why don't you speak? Your silence offends me when all you judge by is Shia or Sunni. A life is a life. Why don't you speak? That's a short one there. The next one, there's a poem in Farsi, the first couplet of which is Mara bejuz khiyalat fikre digar nabashed dar hich sar khiyali zin khubtar nabashed. So it's a loose translation would be that except for you, I have nothing else which passes through my mind. It is my only obsession, and no one else has this conception and this idea of you except for me. So the poem's called The Glance. All I seek is a glance from you. All I want is to renew that old bond which like dew on a petal shimmers waiting for the sun. Ribbons of light untie the barren landscape. My tears glisten. All I seek is a glance from you. All I want is to be true to that covenant you drew. etched upon my heart, my soul. As I wander from pole to pole, caravans disappear, but the bell still tolls. All I seek is a glance from you. All I want is to undo these chains of memory through union. Caged in eternity, my journey, a hazy reverie, weaves new paths to deceive. All I seek is a glance from you. All I want is what is due to me. So break the sinews of my heart and grant a glimpse of light, which tearing through this dark night will grant me vision, grant me sight. The next one, it's called Dreams of Spirits. And there's again a poem in Farsi, مرا در منزل جانان چه عیش و غم چون هر دم جرس فریاد می نالد که بربندی محملها. So it says, I have no calmness, I have no مرا در منزل جان, in the abode of my beloved, I cannot keep still. For the bell, the caravan bell is ringing, saying that pack up your belongings. It's an allusion to the heartbeat and how it's not really died, I think. So that was, yeah, so inspired by a poem by Hafiz. It's called Dreams of Spirits. To the stranger in an unknown land, to the moon awake during the day, to the only rose in winter's whiteness, to the stars on a cloudy night, to music amongst the deaf, to beauty amongst the blind, to the weary among the young, to the faithful among the unbelievers, to the living among the dead. Only when you are snatched away, only when night arrives, only when you droop and wither, only when you cannot shine, only when your strings are broken, only when you age and fade, only when you refuse to take another step, only when you embrace your soul, only when you die, shall you come to wake and find that life and death both left you behind. This one is, I have a little bit of time, so yeah. There's the last emperor of India, Bahadur Shah Zafar, was a terrible, well, not a terrible emperor, but not a very gifted emperor, but he was a very, very gifted poet and a Sufi. This poem is inspired by one of his couplets, one of his poems actually. So it says in Urdu, it's "Ye apni khudi ko jo humne bhula, wo jo parda sa beech mein tha na raha, rahe parde mein ab na wo parda nashin koi dusra uske siwa na raha." So it says, when I forgot my selfness, khudi is a word in which volumes have been written, but it refers to the self, perhaps to the ego, to the nafs. So when I was able to overcome myself, that small veil, that thin veil which separated us no longer existed, and no one was separated from me, and behind the parda it was only you. So this is behind the veil. It's written, there's a form called the sestina poetry, which I believe was invented by troubadours in France in the 12th century. I stick to the rhyme pattern and the verse pattern, but not 10 syllables per line, which is what often it is. So basically each verse is made up of the same 6 words in different set combinations. And before I forget, the last verse, which are 3 lines basically, I couldn't think of an ending, and they were again inspired by a poem by Umar ibn al-Farid, who was a great Sufi mystic, and he wrote something called the Khimriya, the wine song, and the first 2 lines of which are "Sharibna ala dhikri habibi mudamatan, sakirna biha min qablu an yakhluq al-kalb." So I was intoxicated. I drank of the love. I imbibed the love of the beloved. Sharibna ala dhikri habibi, since ages. And I was intoxicated before even the creation of the grape. So, this is the So conversations with the self. You claim to know what I believe, embedding in my memory your struggle against submission. Your God is time. Like a scalpel, time dissects what we know, no submission. How can I believe that your struggle, your history is my memory? You say my memory is an illusion of time. You say my struggle should be to know and not to believe. No blind submission. But my submission, unburdened by memory, is how I believe. No need of time to progress, to know. It is not a struggle. You assume I struggle to reach submission. To know without memory, without time, is to believe. To believe, to struggle against time is submission, but your memory dictates what you know. To know is to limit what you can believe. Your memory is your struggle, while my submission began before time. Do you want me to? Actually, instead of reading my own, I plan to read, I just have the translation also. I plan to read something in Farsi, which is one of my favorite poems. It's by a poet called Fakhruddin Iraqi, who, you know, often we forget because we're so used to thinking of the world as nation states, and therefore the boundaries that dictate these nation states. You know, cultures were much more fluid. There was much more interaction between people. Lines were not so drawn, and so he's from Hamdan. He went to live in what is now modern-day Pakistan in Multan because his murshid went there, Bahauddin Zakaria. When Bahauddin Zakaria died, he came back and he went to the Arabian Peninsula and up to Turkey. So he traversed the length and breadth of that area. Do you want me to just read the translation of the? ز دو دیده خون فشانم ز غمت شب جدایی چه کنم که هست اینها گل خیر آشنایی همه شب نهادم سر چو سگا بر آستانت که رقیب در نیاید به بهانه گدایی مژه ها و چشم یارم به نظر چنان نماید که میان سنبلستان چقدر آهو خطایی در گلستان چشمم ز چه رو همیشه باز است به امید آن که شاید تو به چشم من درآیی سر برگ گل ندارم به چه رو روم به گلشن که شنیده‌ام ز گلها همه بوی بی‌وفایی به کدام مذهب است این به کدام ملت است این که کشند عاشقی را که تو عاشقم چرایی به طواف کعبه رفتم به رحم ندادم به حرم ندادم که برون در چه کردی که درون خانه آیی به قمار خانه رفتم همه پاک باز دیدم چوب صومعه رسیدم همه زاهد ریایی در دیر می زدم من که یکی ز در آمد که درا عراقی که تو خاصگان مایی. I apologize for my translation. It was very last minute and no way it captures the beauty of the Farsi, but just to give you an idea. I shed tears of blood that evening when you left. What could I do? For they were the flowers of our first union. Every night, like the street dogs, I lay my head on your doorstep in the hope that no one challenges me and by pretending to be a beggar enters your house. For me, the eyelashes and the eyes of my beloved look like a wandering deer grazing in the flower beds. My expectant eyes are always open, searching for you, in the hope that one day my eyes will see you once more. I am no flower, so why would I enter the garden? For from the flowers I have smelt their hypocrisy. Which religion permits this? Which community allows this? That they kill the lover, saying, "Why do you love me?" I went to enter the Kaaba, was not allowed in. A voice asked, "What have you done outside that you think you can enter?" I went to the gambling house, and all what I saw were pure souls. And then I went to the Sema ceremony and saw abstaining hypocrites. So I went to the monastery, and someone came out to greet me, saying, come in, Iraqi, for you are from amongst my special ones. Just to explain, the Sema ceremony is a Sufi ceremony where pious wayfarers congregate. So. And it's not a literal translation, so it's just to capture the essence. Thanks very much.
Okay, we're just going to have a short 5-10 minute break, so if you're back, if you want refreshments downstairs, so you can come back after that. Okay.